Hi, everybody. Jenny Lee Hodgins here. Happy Tuesday. We can all relate to the struggle to learn piano or to get to the next level of musical growth that sometimes we have. We're all busy adults and we're juggling many different kinds of responsibilities while continuing to pursue our love of piano music. When there's so many balls in the air that you're juggling, it can be really easy to get kind of sucked up in the hamster wheel. And I freely admit that I've had a struggle with my frustration about not being at a more advanced level of piano skill that I was where I was in the past. And recently, I recognized because of my personality, my bold zeal to improve my skills at the piano, I was losing sight of something much more important, and I think it's relevant to many piano players or piano learners. I was not being fully present in my piano practice. This is very common, this impatience that, particularly adults have. We can be impatient with our level of piano skill, and it can cause rushing through the music or in our practice, and that leads to mistakes. It can also lead to very bad or improper technique, and it can even lead to physical pain with tendonitis or worse. But we're going to talk today about how to make greater piano progress with opposing practice strategies. I advocate that mind spent is better than time spent at the piano. But sometimes how we spend our mind can be differently interpreted and useful. And so this how we spend our mind really depends on what you need in your piano learning journey. I'm going to talk about these two opposing piano practice strategies. There are times when my focus of my first strategy, my one goal at a time piano practice strategy, is very critical, especially for beginners. It's also useful for wherever you are. It's applicable to literally any level in piano. So if you don't know what that strategy is, if you didn't tune in before, let me just do a quick recap of my one goal at a time strategy, so you see the difference in the two strategies I'm going to talk about today. My strategy for effective practice at the piano, where your mind spent is better than time spent. And what that means is a lot of piano players just sit at the piano and they play through stuff repetitively and they waste time, but they get no better at their music. So the strategy I have that I've always applied and I've taught many of my students is to choose one goal at a time. Whatever your level is, choose one thing at a time to focus on, and then fully focus on it and play the passage or the musical selection with that one goal in mind. Really fully concentrate on that one goal. As you play it, evaluate and try to stay focused. Keep yourself focused on that one goal. Once you've finished playing it, you've got two options. If halfway through it you made a mistake, you must immediately stop, because otherwise you're going to practice mistakes. So stop if you make a mistake. If you don't, and if you make a mistake, you go back to the beginning, start all over again, refocus. If you've played through the passage and you evaluate the performance of that passage and you've played it with your full focus on that goal and you were successful in playing it correctly with that goal, try to replicate that at least 3 times in a row, 3 to 5 times. That way you've really ingrained the correct way to play that particular thing. And then you can choose the next goal. And you do this ad nauseum, basically, until you run out of ability to focus. When your mind wanders, then don't do that anymore, because you can't keep focusing like that. It's very intense cognitive attention that you need in that kind of one goal at a time practice. So when your mind wanders, or you can no longer focus on the one goal, stop what you're doing, go take a break, play something fun, relieve the tension, do something different. But this one goal at a time, chunking down your practice into one goal at a time, this practice strategy is very effective for beginners to create a really strong foundation, and it's very progress directed. And I use it myself in my practice. I'll choose one goal at a time for whichever thing I'm doing, and I try my best to spend my mind and my focus on that goal. But I also think that whether you're a beginner or a returning piano learner like myself, there's an opposite kind of practice approach that is beneficial that I'm currently holding myself accountable for. It works for me. And I think the combination of these, opposing parts of piano practice in your piano practice session can really help you move to a deeper level of piano progress, a more satisfying level of piano progress. I just want you to know I'm not going to go all woo woo on you, but I discovered a podcast hosted by a guy named Bob Ross, and it's called Heart of the Piano. And, he's a Zen Buddhist practitioner. Just so you know, I'm an SGI Buddhist practitioner. I've practiced Buddhism for 35 years. And what he talked about, we're not going to go deep into religion, so that's what I mean. I'm not going all woo-woo on you. But what he talked about really resonated with me and introduced a kind of meditation at the piano and away from the piano. And his ideas really struck me as something that would be useful for me, for my personality. And I want to give you some insight to that. Like, even though I've practiced Buddhism, for those who don't know anything about that, it's a very the SGI Buddhist practice that I do is it's an active vocal chant. We chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo and sit and chant that for a while. My personality is such that I'm like always thinking like 9 different things at the same time, and it's very challenging for me personally to not be ADHD, squirrel. I'm always looking in different directions, simultaneously. So even in my own, practice as a Buddhist practitioner, I really struggle personally to sit still with my thoughts and sit still with myself. And so that's why his comments really struck me. But I don't think you need to be a Buddhist or even open to that idea or even open to meditation to get something out of what I'm going to share from that. And I recommend it. I'll try to drop his link there. It's called Art of the Piano. And he's a UK-based advanced level piano teacher. And he's really kind of cool. He talks about lots of different approaches to piano. But it's very evident that his Buddhism comes through his approach to teaching piano and playing the piano, and he's very advanced in his playing. His ideas struck me as useful for me and for you if you want to move beyond a foundation, or if you want to go into a deeper kind of piano practice, a deeper level of it. If you want to overcome some performance anxiety or reach a deeper connection for yourself in the music that you're playing, or a deeper connection between yourself and others that you want to share your music with. I think these are really relevant for those things. And even if you're a total beginner, I feel like if you can incorporate these opposing practices that I'm going to talk about his idea in just a second, but my idea of chunking it down to one goal at a time, and this other idea I'm going to talk about that I'm going to introduce to you that's kind of almost meditative in approach. Even for beginners, I think it's really a much more holistic kind of foundation, particularly for busy adults, because we're so busy, and our mind is busy. But the idea is when I sit down to practice piano, or you sit down to practice piano, you're going to be letting go of striving, perfectionism, and that analytical mind that we have to always think we have to be doing something. And that is me in a nutshell. If you haven't met me, I'm a go, 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 go kind of person, and usually in multiple different directions all at once. My friends often say to me, we share each other's goals, and they'll say, Jenny, just hearing yours makes me tired. So this is really good practice for me, letting go of the striving mind, the analytical mind, the to-do list, the perfectionism that we all most people that want to learn classical piano especially, we tend to have kind of a perfectionist maybe streak to us, because there's a level of artistry and technical finesse that we have to be able to master. So we do kind of have to have some level of I want to strive to be better in us. But when you're sitting at the piano with this opposite kind of, opposite the one goal focus, the way you're going to spend your mind is going to be very different from the mind spent is better than time spent that I talked about with the one goal at a time approach. You're going to actually have the goal to not concentrate. What? To not concentrate on your music. And that requires letting go of your ego. And I don't know about you, like a lot of us have, like, when we're playing things, we want to get better at things so we can show other people that we're good enough, or we're comparing ourselves to somebody else. You got to let go of that particularly in this kind of practice. And I'm going to give an example of it here in a second as I go and tell you what I'm trying to accomplish with it. But basically, it's about turning this one goal narrow focus into kind of a broader view of attention, of your attention when you're at the piano. So this is really good for practice, by the way, away from the piano due to injury, or if you don't have an instrument, or you're on vacation, or you have less time. But also you can do it right at the piano during your piano practice, in the middle of it, and at the end of it. And what it is, or what it includes, is the mentality of practicing, the practice of being versus doing. It's a meditative approach to your piano. Sit at the piano with your arms resting on the keys, because your fingers aren't doing the work. It's the connection, to your body, to your arm. Sit at the piano, with your fingertips resting on the keys, your arms resting on the keys, and just sit there and turn your attention to the sensation of your breath, and be aware of every single feeling of every single fingertip on the keys, every single one of them. Just slowly, paying attention to what it feels like for your every fingertip on the keys resting, the knuckles, the hand, the arms, your neck, your shoulders, your back, your feet, yourself. Eventually you move to all of this, and take it slow, get there when you get there. And the idea then, once you start to practice being aware of your connection to the instrument, just feeling it and sensing your breath, then you tune into your environment. What's the temperature of the room? Are there any other noises going on in your room? The size of the room, what's in your peripheral vision? Just kind of paying attention to what's going on around you. And then when you can actually take this meditative type practice to playing the instrument. Once you've done all this, the breathing and the attentiveness to your physical connection to the piano, choose one note or one chord or one measure or one phrase of the music. Keep it very, very, very simple. Tune in to practicing just that, whatever it is, musical passage, with your attention on the sound itself, the sound of that musical tone or chord or phrase, really deeply listening to the tone of that. This is a major slowing down to get in touch with the being state versus striving and doing. My approach about one goal at a time is you're striving and doing. You're striving to achieve one specific goal and you're doing it. But the being state is you let all of that go. You don't focus on any of it. And you try to be aware of your breath, your breathing, your body, your connection to the keyboard, and the sound of the music itself in a very small, tiny one note or a small passage or one measure of music, something like that. So I've been starting to use this a little bit in my practice away from the piano as well as at the piano, and then playing the piano with this approach. And I've just begun to do that, so I'm a beginner. But I've definitely already noticed this, leads to much more relaxation physically for me. In some cases, completely eliminating tension, or at least making me completely aware of tension I did not know I was holding in certain part of my body. And it's led me to just an awareness of my physical connection to the instrument. And particularly, it has opened my ears more to paying much more attention to the quality of the sound. By quality, I don't mean tonal quality, whether it's major or minor. I just mean I'm really listening to what that sounds like, deeply listening to it and immersing myself in the sound of it. It's helping me find a lot more musical success because it kind of just completely bypasses my ego. Like, I don't have time for my ego. And it bypasses my to-do list because I'm letting it go. So I'm practicing it and I'm envisioning it. I'm also envisioning it, in regard to my performances. I'm envisioning my musical success and the joy of it. And I've done this before. I really recommend, using it, particularly if you're dealing with performance anxiety, and just really immerse yourself in feeling what the music feels like. Just really tuning into that and practicing being with the music. And you can do it both at the piano, like I said, and you can also just, close your eyes and try to remember that music or hear it in your mind or listen to a recording of it and really immerse yourself in that, and simultaneously envisioning yourself successfully playing that and successfully communicating that message or beauty or spiritual connection you have with music to anyone who's listening, minus any ego or tension or nerves. Just really immersing yourself in the joy of it and envisioning it. Choosing something much simpler or something pre-learned, some kind of pre-learned music. You don't want to do this necessarily with something you're just sitting down to learn from the get-go. But, limiting, what I'm doing is I'm limiting my goal to practice this sense of being with the music versus striving and analyzing, tuning into sense and hear more deeply, and practicing playing the music without concentrating on it. That's a real mind-blowing experience, frankly. Once and I think it's useful with just a small amount of music, but it's also useful for whole pieces that you've already learned, or whether you're reading it from notation or you're doing it from memory. I immediately have been feeling a difference in my emotional and physical ease and less tension as I practice this way. And I'm growing much more aware of the tension that I have and where I feel it, which to me is just as useful, because once you're aware of it, that's 90% of the battle. In my earlier years, in my past experiences, I've experienced when I played fully mastered, more advanced level pieces, things like Ravel's Sonatina in A, Debussy's Clair de Lune, Beethoven's Waldstein, or Pathetique sonatas, Chopin's Revolutionary Etude. These pieces that I played in the past, once I got to the level where I could play them basically from memory, or when I've composed music, because I'm a composer, when I've done those things, composing or when I've gotten to a level of mastery of these pieces, I definitely recall experiencing a kind of spiritual level or plane in the playing of that music, or a musical fluidity or musical purpose. And I've experienced, particularly in performances, transcending myself in kind of an emotional or spiritual sense of communication or connection with others. And I basically lost myself, my ego, to a kind of a higher force, the music or the message or the connection of my micro world, or my micro connection to the music, and connecting that to the macro, the universal music itself, or the connection to other people through my performance. Those experiences only happened when I was able to be in a state of being versus judging and doing and striving and perfectionism and analyzing myself or even the music. So all this is to say, I want to encourage you to try incorporating this kind of meditative or tremendous slowing down of your approach to the piano in your regular piano practice, even for a few minutes at the beginning of your session or the middle, or even as when you're wrapping it up. Or, say you've been working on the one goal at a time, chunking things down, and you're losing your concentration. Perfect segue. Stop concentrating and try to play the same thing without concentrating. Just let it go. And I highly recommend, though, when you do this, slow down. That's like a big kind of scaffolding help to get you to the state of being. Is when we take things too fast, everything tends to be rushed and we're kind of out of touch with our being. We're doing and moving forward when we're rushing. So slowing down, lose your sense of concentration. As we incorporate this, kind of slowness, awareness, meditative envisioning, and being fully present, versus doing and striving and analyzing and trying to keep up, in our practice. As we create a practice of slowing down and meditating on this stuff, it becomes more natural to do it, and it becomes more easily accessible to us. So especially, as I mentioned, if you're struggling with performance anxiety, or even for myself, my personality I'm a very high energy, fast-paced thinker, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so, this is a really wonderful practice for myself to slow down and be, with the music. And It's that's what I'm doing in my piano practice routine. I'm going to continue doing this in my practice routine, both at the piano and away from it. And I'm also using this practice as I'm immersing myself in listening to good quality music. A lot of the music that I'm working on, as well as other pieces that I like or that I've played in the past, I'm just listening to that. I'm using this as an opportunity to kind of go slow and more deeply become aware of how much I love music and what my feeling is about the music that I'm listening to or playing, and just be one with it. For definitely sound Buddhist there, but I hope this is a helpful piano tip to you when you get frustrated, or even better, to avoid that frustration, and towards developing a deeper level of musical practice. I hope this is helpful to you. So let me know what you think, and I will keep you posted on my progress as well. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you have, if this, jars ideas for you or brings suggestions to mind, or if you've done something like this, I would love to hear if you try this in your practice. And that's it for today. I just wanted to pop in and give you that piano tip and hold myself accountable for what I'm doing. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy being in your piano practice.